Well, welcome everybody. We're really excited to have you, and we're really excited about what we're talking about today. We're going to be looking at how to create an isolated and legal environment for teaching ethical hacking. And today it's me, I'm Adam Keys, and we've also got Dana Fellows here.
Hello.
And so I've been in product management. This is my second year at TestOut, and I've been in product management for 9 years. Dana, he's been an instructor for 15 years in advanced level IT curriculum, and he's a very strong proponent of industry certification. He has many credentials, including the Certified Ethical Hacker credential. And he is working as our lead instructional designer for the last couple of years and is leading out on the ethical hacking topic here at TestOut. And during this webinar, if you have any questions, we'd like you to place them in the questions panel to the right of your screen. We'll be having questions answered by some of our helpers here at TestOut as we go, and we'll also save some of the broader questions for the whole audience, and we'll be having a question and answer at the end. So encourage you, please, when you do have a question, just drop it in that question box. And also, before we begin, for those who aren't familiar with TestOut as a company, I want to go over what we do just briefly. So TestOut, our goal is we make a difference in a person's life through education using breakthrough technology. Founded in 1991, we were one of the first companies to produce simulated environments on computers, and it's been a very strong thing for us that we've continued to this day. We focus on IT courseware and certifications with hands-on learning. And so far we have 11 courses right now. There are 2 new courses in development, and they are browser-based to allow students anywhere to access the learning and the content. Right now our certifications and courseware prepares for TestOut certifications as well as CompTIA, Microsoft, Cisco, and soon to be EC Council certification. Today, just a little bit of what we'll cover. We're going to go first just a brief overview of the cybersecurity industry and the career outlook for someone looking at ethical hacking. We'll take a look at ethical hacking course requirements. We'll look at a new course we're developing called TestOut Ethical Hacker Pro. And then Dana will talk to us a little bit more about the specifics of that course, the 5 phases of hacking, and we'll have a demo that shows what we're working on. Again, at the end, we're going to have a time set aside for question and answer for any questions that come up. And an important thing to note, we will have a post-webinar survey. It's got a couple brief questions for you. We'd like to get your input on some of the items we're working on, and that'll help us out greatly. So please, when the webinar ends, don't just hit the X button immediately, as it'll pop up just a few questions for you. So to start out, I want to give a little poll, just asking about what your programs are doing and where you stand. So on your screen, you should see a poll pop up. There are 4 questions, and it's which best defines your program's ethical hacker course status. So we'll give you a couple minutes to answer that, or just a couple seconds to answer that, and we'll show you what it looks like. All right, a couple more seconds. All right, so it looks like if we share that, it should show up on your screen. Half are planning or would like to develop an ethical hacking course, and that's great. We're going to talk a little bit about creating a secure environment and the new course that we're going to provide. All right, so starting out, just looking at a little brief overview of the IT security market. Current spending in the IT security market is estimated to be $120 billion. And it's expected to top $300 billion by 2024. Specifically in the US, over the past decade, it's increased by more than 300% to $66 billion of spending in the US, and it's expected to continue at 13.5% annually over the next 8 years. So it's exceeding growth in most other sectors of the economy, and that's not expected to change anytime soon. When we look at a career for someone who is in IT security or ethical hacking, there is a major skill shortage. Right now, there's a global shortage of an estimated 2.93 million security professionals worldwide, and about 500,000 of those in the US. The demand for ethical hackers, penetration testers, is vastly outpacing the number of certified and qualified professionals that are available in the market. And some of the common job roles that an ethical hacker could expect to pursue is a penetration tester, IT security specialist, security engineer, or an application security engineer. And this is a very, very lucrative career pathway. The average entry salary for someone who is qualified in ethical hacking is over $75,000. When we look at the types of hacking, most of the time you hear the word hacker and you think, stay away from my data. So that would be the typical black hat hacker. They're in it for financial or personal gain. They're associated with malware or viruses, and they really value being anonymous because if they're found out, there are very stiff penalties for someone who is hacking. On the opposite side, we have white hat hackers. This is what you would call your ethical hacker. And what distinguishes them, even though they use many of the same tools, a white hat hacker is hired to perform tests, and they are given explicit written and detailed permission for the work that they are doing. Without this, there are quite a few problems, and it goes into a bit of a gray area. Sometimes a gray hat hacker, as we call them, would say, I'm going to fix all the problems with the world's networks. I'm going to make a difference and make things better. And they might start probing around and looking for vulnerabilities and when they find one, approach a company and say, look at the great work I did for you. If you just give me this little fee, I'll fix all of your problems. And it sounds great fixing problems until you realize that it's not legal at all. Even though they might be trying to make a difference in a good environment, they don't have explicit permission to go about the work that they're doing. So as we look at kind of the impact of black hat hackers, the cost of cybercrime is astronomical. Juniper Research estimates cybercrime will cost businesses about $2 trillion in 2019. And Cybersecurity Ventures, another research firm, estimates that cybersecurity will reach about $6 trillion in cost in 2021. And to put that in perspective, that would make cybercrime the third largest economy in the world by GDP. And it would be like placing a 7% hacker tax on everything that passes through the global economy. And it's this number, you see these giant numbers because you look at more than just the financial impact of taking money from a bank account, but it is every time there's a major hack with a company, stocks fall, value is lost, and that's all factored in. So looking at that, that is a lot of zeros. It's a big change in value of companies just based off of cybercrime. Looking at a few specific examples of cybercrime. You may have heard of the WannaCry ransomware attacks that have happened in the last few years, and what this does is it's a program written to go in, encrypt all of the files on a machine, and pop up a message that says, if you want access to your machine again, you're going to have to pay us some money. And so this is already estimated at about $8 billion of damage. And then one of the most high-profile cases in the past several years would be the Equifax hack. And before I took on this task of working with the ethical hacker course, I always viewed hacking as just they find a vulnerability and the hackers are the first to it. But in reality, the Equifax hacks was a month-old issue that had been exposed by the U.S. CERT Homeland Security Department of the government. They had found a flaw with a web designing application. They let companies know that they needed to fix these exploits, and Equifax was really, really slow to get around to this. And hackers, all they had to do was look at the security flaws as outlined by the Department of Homeland Security and start looking around for companies that were not fixing their problems. And that's what happened with Equifax. 147.7 million people's personal data and social security numbers were exposed, and we really aren't going to know the value of that attack for years to come, as hackers will often sit on personal data for many years before initiating an attack or stealing an identity. And as part of this cybercrime and talk, I have a little cautionary example. There is a law that was passed in 1984. It's called the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. And as you can imagine, in 1984, writing writing a law based on computers might be a little lacking in today's age, but it is still what we use in prosecuting individuals. So there is a student named Jeremy Courier, and he was around Detroit in the Rochester Community School District. And when he was 12, he found a sticky note on a computer that had the login credentials for an administrator on the district network. And so him and a friend, they decided to place a little bit of software on those computers and start probing around. I think somebody was mining cryptocurrency at one point, just some things they weren't really supposed to be doing, and they had access to pretty much everything, course content. And while they claimed they didn't steal anything, they said that they were just trying to see what they could find. Jeremy was actually expelled from the district, and now he's under investigation by the sheriff's department. They came to his house with a warrant, took all of the computers, the hard drives, and this is actually an ongoing case. So when we talk about ethical hacking and hacking in general, there are tools that are taught to students that are a little bit scary. They can get in trouble, and while someone like Jeremy would have a very, very bright future in a career in penetration testing, now he's actually looking at legal action, albeit he's a minor, based on just poking around the school district network. Okay, so I'm going to get in a little bit more into creating a safe environment now, but before that, I wanted to put out another poll question there to see what are the most important features when selecting courseware for an ethical hacking course. And you should see this up on your screen now, so we'll do another 30 seconds or so to let you vote. Okay, about another 15 seconds, and then we'll close it down. All right, so the top leader there is hands-on practice with industry tools, then secure in an isolated learning environment, followed by affordability and certification. So those were a little directed on the answers, on the options, but if you have other requirements, we'd love to hear it in the questions and comments section. Okay, so as we look at ethical hacking course requirements, and as we reached out to educators and administrators, we started realizing that creating this secure, isolated environment, but still having the ability to have hands-on practice was very important. So one of the things I came across as I was doing curriculum review was a little concerning to me as a product manager, and this is a direct quote from a hands-on activity provided by a textbook, and it says, "Don't perform port scanning on any systems not included in the IP range your instructor gives you." And to me, that was a little bit scary when I was looking at this. What happens if the IP address ends in .32 and the student puts in .38? Are they going to be hacking the instructor machine? Are they going to be using tools on a live network that they aren't supposed to be touching? And that was just a bit concerning. So we looked at setting up a course. What is the typical setup that someone has to follow to create a secure and an isolated and a legal environment? And if you're setting up a lab within a school, a physical lab, there were some major points of stickiness, we should say, in setting the lab up that makes it a bit difficult. First of which would be you need the equipment and the software. You need to have different servers than the regular school servers. You need to have different computers, virtual machines. It needs to be isolated from the internet. You need the different networking equipment. You need to set up the virtual machines. And this fed into one of the biggest problems that instructors have viewed with setting up an ethical hacking course is that they have limited time and they have lack of being able to build a separate computer lab outside of the entire school labs as they exist. As such, it makes maintaining the system also difficult. A lot of schools, as we saw, many of you, about half of you are looking at starting an ethical hacking course. You're probably not going to start with 6 sections of 25 students. You're not going to have the ability to put that funding into building a lab. Also, there might be a little bit of lack of interest from administration. They don't really understand what the ethical hacking is. The stigma behind the word hacking might make them say, we don't really want to put that in. And another big issue we've kind of talked about is the misuse of tools by students. What if you teach them these skills and it turns around to bite the educators and administrators that are doing it? Because often we stress the importance of being legal and safe, but sometimes kids will be kids and test what they can do. And that's been a big concern. So to show a few bullet points of the important aspects of an ethical hacking course, hands-on practice is very important with industry tools and with labs, but keeping this secure is also very important. Fast loading. When we look at virtual machines, often in the environment of a virtual machine, you first have to load up when a student comes into class, they have to load up the machine. It'll take a little while, a few minutes to do that. After that, if it's a clean virtual machine, they're going to have to go out, find the software on a browser, download it, install it, get everything set up. And you can often find that for specific tasks and learning objectives, it takes longer to actually load the machines and software than it does to complete the actual task. Being isolated. Outside of having a lab where you can pull a plug, it makes it difficult to practice on an actual machine. Instructors need this to be affordable. It's hard to spend $10,000 on a lab at the school that's only going to cater to one section of students at the start. Something that's easy to implement. We recognize that it's often hard to find a certified ethical hacker that is within the school system already. So someone either needs to learn it or they need to have a solution that is able to provide that complete implementable solution as the teacher's also learning ethical hacking. And then unbreakable. If a student goes in and just absolutely messes up all the network configurations and causes some damage, how long does it take to get that back into functioning status? And so something that's easily restored and doesn't break. Now I'm going to go over to how we're going to address some of these and create a safe and secure and isolated environment with Ethical Hacker Pro from TestOut. First of all, we're going to be providing a simulated environment, as we've done in some of the other courses at TestOut. It's going to be networked. There will be multiple machines. There will be network closets, routers, switches, laptops. It will act as if they are using an actual networked environment. It'll include industry tools, over 20 of them, that are used for, well, we'll have Dana talk about that in just a minute. So I'll leave that one a little blank as he talks about that with us. These will be fast, preloaded software ready to work. The student logs in and it is ready to go. And affordable, a self-contained course with no hardware or lab requirements. It will still cover the hardware and software requirements as seen in the lab, but it will do so in a digital environment. This is an all-in-one course. It has labs, videos, demo, text, practice exams. And when we looked at unbreakable and resetting, if a student goes down a pathway, they're 10 screens in and they have no idea what's going on and it's not responding, there's a simple reset button. And that's why a simulated lab environment will work well for ethical hacking practice. Additional value that's added through Ethical Hacker Pro from TestOut. We offer a certification with every single course. It's performance-based. The students are going to be testing with the tools and with the skills that they've gained throughout the course to show that they know how to do the work, not that they just can regurgitate a piece of knowledge they gained throughout the course. One thing that was a problem was the screenshotting. If you've ever done an ethical hacking course, with a virtual machine, it's often hard to have a grading aspect. So teachers often rely on a student taking a screenshot to say, look, I made it to the end. They send that to the teacher, and that's a basis for completion. In TestOut, we're going to have self-grading labs. They will allow for instant remediation. Students will know whether they did the task correctly, and if they didn't, it will tell them where they went astray and how to complete that task the next go-around. The course also is great for distance learning programs and for students to learn at home. It's browser-based, so you can learn anywhere with an internet connection. However, as I said before, these simulations are not connected to the internet, so you don't have to be afraid of students getting into areas that they shouldn't based off of the software provided for the course. It is a turnkey solution. And by that, we mean it does contain everything you would need to run an ethical hacker course from the start. And to help with that, we have a dedicated course integration team that will help you map the course to existing syllabi that you've created or existing courses, as well as help with LMS support. The course is LTI 1.1 compliant, and we do also offer an app that helps with major LMSs in grade syncing and single sign-on. And just to give a summary, Ethical Hacker Pro, we're really happy to announce it's going to be ready for this fall, for programs starting this fall. Pre-release will be July 30th, 2019. The launch date will be on August 13th of 2019. And with this, subject to change, the points below, because we're still working on the course, still elbow deep in the work, we should expect at least 70 networked simulated labs, over 80 videos, over 70 demo videos of software, over 90 text lessons, over 50 quizzes, as well as practice exams that prepare for TestOut Ethical Hacker Pro and for EC Council Certified Ethical Hacker. And at this time, the price will be announced in the next coming weeks, so that's not available today, but we do hope to have that soon. So now we're gonna move into the product a little bit and a little bit more on the technologies associated with it. I'd like to reintroduce again Dana Fellows and pass it over to him.
Thanks, Adam. Good afternoon, everybody. So a little bit about my background. Adam mentioned, so I've been a teacher for about 15 years. I was 10 years full-time high school technology at a career center. So I've been teaching also part-time and full-time at a community college, and I'm still currently teaching some online classes. So if you see the theme there, where the trend, I should say, that I'm a teacher, that's how I think, and that's how I kind of approach my work here at TestOut. So on top of that, I also worked full-time as a network administrator for about 15 years. So like I said, when I came here to TestOut, I brought a thought process like, what do teachers like? What do they need? If they could change something about TestOut, what would it be? And I try to bring that to the table. So something Adam mentioned is and I think the poll also mentioned that hands-on activities is like a big thing that teachers love and students love hands-on activities. And the theme of this webinar is a safe environment, legal, and isolated. And Adam also mentioned fast. So I've also used some other products that use distant virtual machines, and I literally sit there for 10 minutes waiting for everything to load up before I could use those. And then Adam also mentioned using virtual machines in a local environment on a local network. And even though you create these virtual machines, you try to keep the students isolated, you're not sure if they're connected to your live network or not, because a lot of the tools were simulated are tools that you would have to download from the internet in order to get them to use. So another thing about the legal and isolation is you don't want these students running scans, because if they run a scan on a website, you don't know where you're breaking the law. It could be that website could be in your state, in the country, or outside the country. So every area has different laws. And another big thing is students might scan something, and if those things are hosted on like Amazon Web Services, Google, or Microsoft, they could actually be banned from those platforms in the future. So if you're a college student and you get banned from Amazon, Google, or Microsoft from ever using their platforms, with the way the cloud is going nowadays, you might have a hard time finding a job. So let's look at some of the things we're simulating, because I think that is the big thing that teachers want to hear about. And I thought it'd be nice to present this in the 5 phases of hacking, those being reconnaissance, scanning, gaining access, maintaining access, and covering tracks. So we start with reconnaissance. Up there in the bullet points are some of the tools and activities we'll be using, but in general, the reconnaissance is like using social media like LinkedIn and Twitter to gather information about the target, going to company websites, using job postings, especially like on LinkedIn, looking at resumes that people are promoting themselves, doing scans for IP addresses, using the Whois database, and even doing Google hacking to get information about the target. And then next phase is scanning. So scanning, once again, up in the bullet points, there's some different tools and activities that we're simulating. So we're doing port scanning. We're looking for different protocols, services that are running. We're looking for operating systems. Obsolete operating systems is nice to find. Applications, we're looking for what version of those applications that are running. And we're also looking at firewall settings to see what type of ports might be open. Next thing is gaining access. So once we've done our scanning, we want to gain access to the system or target. And we can do that by using social engineering. Password cracking is a big one. So we have simulations using brute force, dictionary attacks, and also using rainbow tables. We also have simulations of getting hashes from a Windows system and also Linux systems and then cracking those hashes. We're doing man-in-the-middle attacks, and then we're also using malware attacks to gain access. And then once we gain access, we want to maintain access. So some of the simulations we're using keyloggers to send back information to the hacker. We're using simulated using Raspberry Pi to plant that into like a data center that we can remote into later and maintain access. We got simulations that create backdoors on systems inside of an organization. We're also simulating using rootkits and some Trojans. And then finally, when we're all done with this, we want to cover our tracks. So once again, we're simulating tools to do just that. We're using like a tool like Audit Poll. We're clearing our logs. We're deleting any accounts we might have created. We're closing any open ports that we may have open. And these are just the things that we're simulating, and we're demoing a whole bunch more tools on top of that. So next thing I want to do is show you one of the simulations that we've created. I'm not going to do this live in case there's any issues, but in this scenario, we're going to do a man-in-the-middle attack, and we're going to use EtherCap to do that. So the first thing I'm going to do here is go to a command prompt, and I'm going to find out the Ethernet adapter that I'm going to use, and I've highlighted that right there. Next thing I'm going to do, I would need to find the IP address of my target, and I did a ping, and that IP address ends in 032. And I'm getting some of this information from the scenario off to the left. So next thing I need to find out is the gateway. So this exhibit here shows our diagram and my default gateway to the internet. So now I'm going to open up EtherCap. And EtherCap can be used for all types of things, man-in-the-middle, DNS poisoning, flooding, all types of things. So we're going to do unified sniffing. I'm selecting my Ethernet adapter. I'm going to scan for host on my network. And down there you can see I found 31 hosts. Now I want to list my host. And my router was 0.5, so I'm going to add that to target 1. And if you remember actually my router was 0.5, now my target is 0.32. Now I'm going to do ARP poisoning. I'm going to sniff remote connections and click OK. Now I'm going to go over to my victim machine, or the target. I'm going to open up Google Chrome, and I'm going to go to a website and log into the employee portal. So we have RMK supplies. And I'm going to enter in the information from the left, B. Jackson, and the password. You can see that I'm logged in as Blake Jackson. So I'm going to go back to the IT admin computer. You can see if nothing else, we stopped right here. We already have the username and password. But also what I want to do is grab this session, this cookie ID right here, and I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to go to another machine over here in Office 2, And once again, I'm going to go to the website RMK Supplies. But this time, I'm going to go up to this this cookie creator plugin for Chrome, and I'm going to do a session hijacking. So I'm going to put in .login, and then the cookie session ID, I'm going to paste that in from what we grabbed at EtherCap, and I confirm the right address, and I click login, and I'm automatically logged in, and I'm logged in as Blake Jackson, and I've hijacked this session. And if you're familiar with LabSim, you click on Score Lab, and then you get your results right there. And then the cool thing, Adam mentioned integration with LMS. You can have this set up to go directly into your gradebook in Canvas or Desire to Learn or whatever else you're using. So that kind of wraps up my part here real quickly, but I just want to add as a teacher, this I've been using TestOut for close to 15 years, and I won't use anything else. But a couple things I want to mention, Adam, is a couple teachers have asked me, like, can I have students like sign up today who's never had any other technology classes and jump right in? And my teaching background says I would require a student to have at least like the PC Pro and Network Pro skills before they took this class. You saw that I did like an IF config, and I did a ping and some things like that, and I talked about default gateways. Beginning students don't know those things, so at least PC Pro, Network Pro, and preferably Security Pro before they would be able to take this class. So I'll pass it back to Adam now.
Thank you. And before we get into questions, just a couple notes. We will send out a recording within the next couple days of this, so if you want to review anything that's been presented, that will be available. If you would like more info about the course, there is a link on your screen right now. And again, I'd like to mention that after this webinar, there will be a few questions at the end. We'd be very interested in your input. And with that being said, I'd like to thank you all for joining us today, and we're going to take a look at any of the questions that you've presented throughout this webinar, and give you a couple minutes to put those in if you haven't done so yet. Okay, we have a question from an instructor. It says, these certified ethical hacker guys are pretty particular about taking acceptable training prior to taking the exam. How will this be viewed by them?
So I took the exam. The Certified Ethical Hacker exam is multiple choice, and the training for the exam is more difficult than, in my opinion, the exam itself. So you could, it depends on who you are. If you're experienced IT person who've been using these tools right along, you could probably I don't know how to say this, but I went through everything pretty quickly and took the exam and passed it. What we're offering with the simulations and demos, so you're not just reading about like what a man-in-the-middle attack is. So you can read about it and like, yeah, this sounds cool. But now what you're going to do, you're actually going to watch a demo on a man-in-the-middle attack taking place like 3 different ways. And then we've also simulated, like I just did the EtherCap, we've simulated where you actually go in and you're doing the man-in-the-middle attack. So by the time it comes around to taking the exam and you see any question related to like a man-in-the-middle attack, you're going to remember that like easily because you've read about it, you've seen it, it's been demoed, we've got a text lesson on it, we did a practice question, and you've done a simulation. So you've learned it 5 different ways. So as a learner and an instructor, that's what I like about TestOut in general, and then especially this course. And when we started developing this course early on, I was a little bit worried because we're developing like I think Adam mentioned like around 20 simulated different tools that do different things, and we just did the EtherCap. And if you ever use EtherCap, I mean it's like dead on. It's like EtherCap. If I didn't know any better, I would think I was on, the real EtherCap. It's so that knowledge just sticks with me when I do hands-on activities.
Great. Thank you, Dana. Next question I have here is there objective mapping to the CEH certification or any particular textbook? There is alignment with the CEH certification objectives. We will cover all of those. And we also have our course integration team that if you do happen to have a textbook or something that you're using in your course already and want to use TestOut as a supplement, our team will help you map our course to that textbook to make sure that it integrates with your course well. Another question, any opportunity for instructor preview access? We will have instructor access available on July 30th. Anything before then, it's still very heavily subject to change, but that's when it will be available. And if you reach out to any of the sales reps at TestOut, they'll be able to show you more and give you resources such as the course outline and the technologies that'll be simulated in the course. And that kind of goes along with another question asking if we have considered creating a document containing all fact sheets with linked table of contents, being very helpful in a classroom environment. With all of our courses, we do create outlines with expected time, instructor resources, PowerPoints. Those will be available at product launch to help you with classroom management and course management. And then as part of the access for instructors, we do always provide free access to instructors for any of our courses. All you have to do is contact one of our sales reps and they'd be more than happy to get you set up so that you can take a look for yourself. As mentioned again, ethical hacking won't be available for that until July 30th. How many chapters will be included in the course? Well, if it were yesterday, there were like 12.
There's 15.
Today there are 15. So it's still very much so under development. And Dana?
Yeah, so we broke, the information gathering chapter was one chapter. That included reconnaissance, scanning, and enumeration. We broke that up into 3 chapters. And it, for a couple of reasons, it helps align with the objectives for the exam. And it just, those sections were just getting to be too long. So we broke that up a little bit. So, but you can probably, as a teacher, I always taught 16-week courses, traditional, and I always loved it when TestOut would release a course that had 15 chapters because it was easy for me to create a syllabus that way. So I told the people I'm working with, I said, let's, at this point it's 15, let's try to keep it at 15 if possible, make my job easier creating a syllabus. So I'm kind of selfish in that way.
A couple more responses just for information. This will be the EC Council Certified Ethical Hacker version 10 alignment. And it will not be official content of EC Council just because they do not do content partnerships.
Did somebody ask about tools earlier? I can read some of the tools we're demoing and simulating. So let me talk about that for a minute. So some of the tools we're either demoing or simulating is Nmap, Netcat, of course Kali Linux, not the entire system, but a lot of it. We got Shodan, Network Scripting Engine, Metasploit, Wireshark, Cain and Abel, John the Ripper, Medusa, Hydra, PW Dump. That's what you use to grab a SAM database. Trojan Maker, JPS Virus Maker, TCP View, EtherCap, and EtherCap we're using that for several things. Social Engineering Toolkit, Loafcrack, Steg Tool, Audit Poll, LOIC, Pentbox, Snort, HT Track, MD5 Hash Verifier, SSMAC for Mac spoofing, SoftPerfect, ProRat, HTTP Trojan Maker, Vericrypt, AirCrackNG, SQL injection tools, and that's not even all of them. Those are the ones that I was able to accumulate this morning.
And that list, we don't have it as part of the webinar to show you with the slides, but reach out to your sales rep and we will be able to provide you with a list of all the technologies we're looking at so far, and that'll continue to develop as we build the course. Another question was, what are the prerequisites for this course if you're following a TestOut pathway? And as Dana mentioned before, Network Pro would be fantastic, Security Pro, Linux Pro would also be very helpful. And
yeah, so traditionally when I taught high school, my path was PC Pro, Network Pro, Security Pro in that order, and then my second year advanced students would either go Security Pro or maybe routing and switching, or maybe like the first Microsoft course. And now, if I was still teaching high school, the ethical hacker would definitely be an option at that point. So you definitely have to have pretty decent networking, network plus, those types of skills in order to be successful in this class. And Adam mentioned Linux. As I'm doing the demos and we're doing simulations, we try to walk you through any command line things, because we hope that you know some Linux, but that's not a requirement, but it's very helpful if you do have that.
Thank you, Dana. We have another question of, do you have information about how this course would integrate into a college curriculum? We would like to develop security track for our computer science department, but it's been a little tough to figure out where to start. We do have recommended pathways for adding IT security to your college pathways. Please reach out to a sales rep or head to the website and contact us, and we'd be more than happy to look at your specific program and give you the tools needed to develop a curriculum for that track. Can LMS integration pull grades at the module level? And that is a technical question for me, but as I understand it, if you're using one of the larger LMS systems such as Canvas or Blackboard, we do have an app, an edu app that we've built that allows you to pull grades at a module level. The course, is it a course for 8 weeks or 16 weeks? This is intended to be a 16-week course in an accelerated environment. What do you think, Dana?
Yeah, so we did have one college send a syllabus they're using, and they're trying to do this type of content in like 5 or 6 weeks, which I can't agree with. I would definitely recommend 16 weeks. Since we're at 15 chapters right now, you could probably do it in 8 weeks if the students are if they've gone through all the prereqs and they can really move along well. But I definitely 16 weeks. I wouldn't want to do anything less than 16 weeks.
Thank you. What about mapping for Pen Test Plus? That's a question, as we have a lot of CompTIA courses. EC Council has shown themselves to be the market leader here for ethical hacking, and Pen Test Plus is very new. While it will cover a lot of the objectives in Pen Test, we're not specifically creating the course to prepare for that exam at this time. And then had a question about the citations on the PowerPoint. I will reach out to you on those ones. So I see your question, and I'll get in contact with you to give you those sources so that it's not just data that I made up. What about an exam? We talked about this briefly, but this will include a certification exam called TestOut Ethical Hacker Pro. It will be completely hands-on, utilizing similar simulations to the course, but not the same simulations. And it will be hands-on and allow students to say, I have a credential that shows I know skills. And this is backed up, as all TestOut courses, by the TestOut Skills Guarantee. And that means that if you have a student that studies, goes out and works in the industry, and the industry says they do not have the skills that you say they have with this certification, we will reimburse the company up to $1,000 for that. So when someone's certified in TestOut, we believe in the skills that they're certifying in.
Yeah.
And this is not at an extra fee at any point. It's included in the course, so that everyone who has the course has an opportunity to certify.
Adam, I was going to add that I always use the certification course or exam as my final in my courses. It worked out really well. Another thing I'll say too. Some people would say, does that pro exam have a lot of pull in the industry? So I had an advisory committee back where I taught in Illinois, and at least once a year I would try to get the advisory committee to meet actually in my classroom during one of my classes, and I would have students actually show people in the industry like the different tools they were learning, and I actually would invite people to say, hey, want to try this, whatever, set up this DHCP relay agent or something from our server class, and I would never get any volunteers. And then, then I have a student jump up and do it and show the people in the industry like the things that they're doing to get this certification. And so the cool thing is whenever somebody applied for a job in my area and they knew they went through my classes at the career center, even at the local college, they knew they were doing the hands-on things. They knew that they had those skills, and as far as I know, nobody got the $1,000 guaranteed money from my area. So
Great. And then a couple questions about physical hands-on labs. If we'll be able to provide recommendations for components and any thoughts about setting up a cyber range for students. I think physical labs are a great addition. It is great to be able to get in the product and be hands-on. We recognize that this isn't an option for all programs, but for programs that can do it, it's very beneficial. And then in that case, TestOut would be a very good helper for hands-on practice outside of the classroom. We understand that a lot of classes you only have 3 to 5 hours a week in a classroom, and that might not be enough to set up all of the tasks you're going to do and all the software and do it. So I think a cyber range lab is great for students. A physical lab is great as an option to give them hands-on experience. And as for making recommendation on components, that's a great thing to consider as we build this, making recommendations for how to set up one of these labs. And that's something we're not committed to yet, but we'll definitely evaluate if we can help out in that aspect.
yeah, so I'll add in from other classes. I always supplemented my high school, and college. I'd supplement all my test out material with additional virtual labs that the students would do. And this class or this course is just a little bit different, where you have all these hacking tools, which I would be a little bit more skeptical of setting up virtual machines in my lab and potentially have it connected to my live network, even though my classroom was isolated from the school. So the cool thing about this is the students can practice these tools anywhere, at home, anywhere, without being on a live network or getting themselves in trouble. So, but like I said, I always try to supplement the test out material, but sometimes you're better off maybe not doing it, in my opinion. So.
And then to wrap it up, the last question we have is, does a TestOut certification provide skills for an entry-level job position? I firmly believe that as a yes. I've looked at the other available courseware in the market and the course objectives for many higher education and high-level classes. And I firmly believe also with that skills guarantee that we are providing skills that are necessary for an entry-level job position for TestOut certified individuals. So I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today. Thank you, Dana, for being part of this and giving us the technical expertise that I lack.
Well, thank you.
And we're very excited to have this course come out. Again, it will be ready August 13th, pre-release on June 30th. And we really encourage you, if you have any of the other questions, reach out to us here at TestOut. We'd be more than happy to help and answer questions you have. So thank you all. Look forward to the recording coming out in the next day or so. And as soon as we close out, there will be a survey on the webinar that we would love to have your responses on. Thank you very much.